I begin this session by introducing my close colleague Michael Gusmano, with whom I work on the World Cities Project, who has been kind enough to cross the river from New Jersey at Rutgers University, where he teaches at the School of Public Health, and come to join us so that he can, together with me, react in some way to what our guest speaker today will be telling us. Michael Gusmano will also be here on this side of the ocean when I'm in China, so that he can ask questions as well to the colleagues in Shanghai with whom we did some work that we'll tell you about when we get closer to the China session. And then back to your question, Siti, how sharp can the questions be? I think that what I will do is send you copies of the short paper that we wrote. It's very short, 3 pages, and some of the responses to it, and a general article on health reform in China. And you should feel that as long as you're polite, you can ask any question you want, either about our paper with the speakers in China there, or about the general system in China, or the problems in Shanghai, and take it, you know, I will start in if they want to give a talk for 10-15 minutes, I'll certainly allow that, but I'll try to make it more of a conversation. And I haven't spoken to them directly yet, so I'll have to do that when I'm there. But they are committed, they will be there, and we will be meeting from 8:30 to 10 at night here in New York with Dr. Gusmano and the class. Yeah, Michael.
If you'd like, I could share the chapter I wrote on Chinese health reform for the federalism, because some of it's relevant because it talks about the degree to which the Chinese have decentralized responsibility for payment in the health system. So that might be useful.
And I've asked Wenbo to take an active role, since he's the one student in this group focusing on Shanghai and China for the final presentation. So Michael, I have it, but just send me as a reminder and I'll post it right onto the website. And
Okay.
I'll have that as a reading if you want to get into it. So today we're very fortunate to have Alex Precher. Alex is the president and the CEO, he'll explain what the distinction is, of an organization called Health Investment and Financing. I don't know how many employees you have in that organization, but you'll tell us as well. But that's the present. The past is so large I can't go through it all. I will only give you a very brief sense of who you have with you this evening. Alex is a physician. He doesn't always say that to everybody, but it's true. He was trained in medical school before getting his PhD in economics at the London School of Economics. And he took many jobs. He spent some time in Canada. I think he even has a Canadian nationality. He was an important player in healthcare at the World Bank, where he spent most of his career, and the former head of the health industry and investment policy analysis for the investment climate department of the World Bank. He really knows how aid is given, issues of conditionality, and the kinds of research that goes behind that, and the extent to which it influences or not the allocation of assistance from the bank. Since he's very knowledgeable about investment and knows how to diversify his portfolio, in settling in New York after this time in Washington, he's managed to get himself an appointment at NYU and Columbia and Mount Sinai, so he's fully diversified, having one foot in the door, depending on who wins and who loses the battle of the educational establishments. I should mention one other thing that he coordinated in 1997, something that many people in the development field know, which is the World Bank's Health, Nutrition, Population Health Strategy, which was a key document, one that I actually read. It was small enough to read, succinct. I remember it as an important piece. I think he was also involved in many, many things that I've left out, including the macroeconomics, what was that called, the macroeconomics?
Commission on Macroeconomics.
Commission on Macroeconomics and Health, which was a joint venture, I think, between the World Bank and the World Health Organization. Anyway, with all that experience, I've asked him not to summarize it all to you, but just to tell us his view of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the challenge is that these countries, which represent about 40% of the world's population, so it seems to me it's very hard to think about global health without thinking about BRICS. If global health is to improve, and nothing is done in the countries that at least did for a period of time, develop rather fast, and have the resources to do something, if they so choose, about what they proclaim to be important, which has now gone under the latest slogan, Universal Health Coverage, UHC. They've all proclaimed a commitment to that. If that's actually going to happen, it seems to me, and to Michael, we've worked together on this, kind of important to know that experience. And that goes far beyond anything we've talked about in this class today, which is why I thought we should go beyond Beveridge and Bismarck and Germany and France and England and look at some of these middle-income countries and what influence they have and what challenges they have and how they're meeting that. So Alex, thank you very much, and feel free to correct any mistakes I've made along the way.
No mistakes. So thank you very much, Victor, and it's a real pleasure, being able to have this conversation with the class here. I decided not to use some slides. I had lots of slides, but then, in a small seminar room like this, it actually probably works better because we can have more of a conversation rather than just slides and kind of a stiff thing. So first of all, I really like the course here. It's a great course with what a
Should give you an evaluation to fill out right away.
Yes, exactly. What an overview of different health systems and different things. And I think kind of ending with the BRIC countries. This is an interesting way of finishing off the course. You've all read the health policy paper. And I'll refer to some of the key things that are in the health policy paper. But I wanted to start by just stepping back for a second because I always feel it's good for students to kind of start off by being critical, okay? So let's start off by being critical and thinking a little bit about what we're talking about. Okay, so there's three things I want us to be critical about. One is we're talking about health reform, okay? Two is we're talking about BRIC. And three, we're talking about universal health care. So there's three things here we're trying to put together, right? So let's look at each one of those just a little bit and see if we can kind of come to some sort of a consensus about what we're actually talking about. So BRIC, what does BRIC come from? What did the term come from? Who invented BRIC?
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Goldman Sachs, the famous Goldman Sachs. If you YouTube, you'll see the thing, and you got some arrogant guy, who says, I invented BRICS, and BRICS means blah blah blah. So what does BRICS mean?
Brazil.
Russia.
No. What was the concept of BRICS?
It was a growing group of developing countries that were to rival the G7.
No, what was the definition?
It was more of focused on the economically developing countries.
Okay, anything else more precise? More precise? Because we're talking about BRICS, right? So we want to be sure that we actually understand what BRIC is. So what was the definition by Goldman Sachs? Okay, anybody else? Okay, large populations, right? So very large populations. And what was the second criteria? High growth.
Remember, he's an investment.
Right? Okay, so let's look at the 4 BRIC countries, okay? What's the population in China?
1.4 billion.
Okay. Kind of counts, right? And what's the growth in China?
Now about 6.9?
Yeah, 8, 6, 8, whatever, it doesn't really matter, it's more than the US, right? Okay? So, not bad, we'll let China in, okay? What about India?
Around
1.2.
2 million, okay, and what's growth today?
3 to 4.
No,
keeps fluctuating from 5, 7, 6.
yeah, it's got around 7, okay? Okay, India's in. Okay, we got 2 out of 4. Okay? Now comes the problem. Okay? Russia. What's the population of Russia?
100 million?
60 million.
Yeah, 140 I think. Yeah, something like that. And what's growth?
Depends who they're attacking.
Recession.
But what is growth? 1%, 2%?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
at the time of the Goldman Sachs definition, it was higher.
No, it wasn't, not
No.
much.
A little bit
Oh,
higher than it was, there was still oil,
at
there
the time, well,
was still gas,
it was not big growth, okay?
but
So,
it was, what, really?
so they had a third criteria, we'll come back to the third criteria, because the third criteria, I left it out for now, okay? Okay, so if you were gonna, I mean, logistically, if you take that definition, I wouldn't let Russia into the club. They don't belong, right? Out, so it's out. So what about Brazil?
200 million
200 million and growth?
now,
Right now,
minus
like-
1.
Yeah, okay, fine, okay, so that comes back to Professor Rodman's comment, right?
4%.
It might have been 5 at some point, so it kind of met the growth criteria, but didn't meet the population criteria. Why wouldn't it meet the population criteria? Give me some countries that would be bigger than Russia or BRIC, or Brazil, that maybe should have been in there.
Indonesia,
So Indonesia, exactly,
Bangladesh.
maybe, well,
No.
growth wouldn't be there, Indonesia would be.
Mexico. No.
So Goldman Sachs came out with this other definition we call N11. What does the N11 stand for? Next 11. They're very logical, okay? So the next 11, and you have a list, you should look it up. You should look up what the next 11 are, because actually some of the next 11 would kind of qualify, like Indonesia, Malaysia, there are countries now that really have the high growth stuff. And when you go to Africa now, they're not big countries, but there's some African countries that are really growing quickly now, and that really are up there, 7%, 8%, which were not around in the Goldman Sachs area. So what was the third criteria?
Size?
Right.
Size?
No,
Political stability.
no. So the third criteria were potential business opportunities, okay? Very subjective, not something you can really measure very easily, whatever,
I thought
okay?
that was the first criteria.
Well, whatever, that may have been the underlying criteria by which you
Yeah.
picked the
Right.
demographics
Right.
and the economics.
Right.
But so BRICS doesn't mean anything, okay? So the reason why I say that is BRICS doesn't make any sense. It's a definition that doesn't make any sense. The countries don't have a coherence. There's no reason as a health policy person to put these 4 countries together, because there's nothing in these 4 countries that makes them common.
Makes even less sense if you include South Africa.
Well,
Yeah.
so South Africa is the other one that, of course, BRICS with the S at the end, and there you don't have the population or the growth. But once again, do you have the opportunity? Well, maybe yes. Okay, I was actually giving a session today in Columbia University where we use South Africa as an example. So BRICS now.
Just one amendment to that.
Yeah.
I sat at a conference in India, where I heard, in the presence of Chinese, the Indian, Mohanty, say that the most important aspect of BRICS for him was the concept of non-alignment, or counterpower to the prevailing.
Sure, non-alignment, but that was not the Goldman Sachs definition.
No, but that was
To him
what
afterward, yeah.
to him afterwards,
Yeah.
and to some of the people talking in this area, that non-alignment and counterpower, although
I'm not sure with
to
China
US
would be non-alignment.
To the which?
Well, it was part of the international non-alignment, but
Which one?
China,
Oh,
yeah.
well, no, China was, but there was a time with Tito, China was.
Yeah, that's true.
that-
Well, that could be, so,
Anyhow, that's just a.
no, but so then let's redefine break as non-alignment. But then,
Well,
then
It's
then
not,
I would include a few other countries in
sure,
there, right? Because they're
I assure you that
yeah.
for purposes of this, I had no intention of using this as an important concept, other than the fact that it exists and people talk about it.
And it's interesting, exactly.
And they're big countries,
Yeah.
which create a lot of contrast. in fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing it up
Yes,
is because
sure.
this is a
Well,
policy group and we're
Right,
trying to
absolutely,
think
no.
policy-wise, what is it that we're actually
I
looking at,
accept,
right? Okay.
absolutely.
So, second thing, universal healthcare, right? So let's look at the universal healthcare, okay? Now, it gets even, the
Well,
ice is even thinner. This is almost like, this is like going out to Central Park in the winter and say, I'm gonna go skating on the boating pond, you know? Okay, so universal healthcare, interesting. So before I ask you what your definition of universal healthcare, let's just, the four countries we have on the list, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, do they or do they not have universal healthcare?
No.
They do have like a mixture of it.
Well, in theory,
Do they or don't they?
no.
No.
Okay. Russia,
No.
come on. Where did they come from?
I mean, in the Soviet
Communism,
Union,
right?
Soviet Union, there was like almost universal system. But
Not almost, it was like 110%, right? I mean, there was like, there was no such thing as anybody left out, right? So,
Well,
That's
now
not
we
Soviet
get
no,
Union.
hang on. Okay, by definition, there was a universal, right? Nobody was left out.
Well, I don't know, it depends what you mean by
They
left
also
out.
had
I mean, but
Anybody could go to any hospital or clinic and get care.
There's nothing
They
to be
could-
said in
that's
favor
right.
of access to incompetence.
Okay,
Everybody had access to something, that doesn't mean it's universal.
but you had universal healthcare. I mean,
Well, I don't know,
So,
it
okay,
depends how you
so-
define universal health.
But now we're nuancing universal, right? So now we're gonna come to the nuances, but I mean, they had universal healthcare and probably still do, I mean, depending how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, India,
No.
No.
what does it say in their constitution? What did they inherit?
universal.
I'm sorry, question?
What does it say in their constitution on healthcare?
That healthcare is a right,
Yes.
but on a practical basis, it's.
No, wait. Let's not get practical. Let's not get anything practical. So they have universal healthcare, right? And what did they inherit from the Brits? The National Health Service, right? There's an Indian National Health Service, right? Which technically anybody who's in India has access to, right?
Right.
Hypothetically, yes.
Anybody can go there if you want to. I mean, you may not want to, but you're not excluded, right?
Yeah.
You're not excluded. I mean, if you're a rich person, you're a millionaire, you can go to Delhi and go to a public hospital if you want,
Yeah.
right?
You might have to wait.
No, well, maybe, but So, that's universal, isn't it?
So I think it's a semantics thing. You should really say which countries say they have universal healthcare. 'cause
Okay, but-
it makes it a
I mean,
little
We're
more
just,
fair.
okay, but we're I mean, there's this thing called universal healthcare. I want you to think about it. So, we need to just look at, and then we need to come back and sort of think, okay, what do we actually mean with that now? Just like with the BRIC, clearly two of the countries were out, right? We're now looking at universal. Do the BRIC countries have universal or not? China. Absolutely, right? It's communist. It's absolutely, everybody has access to healthcare. I mean, it's part of the fundamental underpinnings of communism, right?
Different quality. Different quality.
Except that they largely defunded the public system starting in the late 70s.
Okay, but they're universal, right? I mean, that's where they're coming. It's basically universal, right?
Yeah.
Now, Brazil,
Yes,
yeah, right, because what?
because of the reform in '89, the SUS.
But even before that,
Before that, it was not on the
what does the Constitution
Constitution.
say?
The Constitution of '88
Yeah.
says that's universal, but
It's
before
universal.
no,
So, okay, but so somewhere along the way,
'89.
okay, let's now, because now we're gonna talk reform in a minute, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have four countries where Russia, when did it happen in Russia? 1919, right? 1919, after communism came in, part of the communist program was universal access to healthcare, okay? So long time ago, even, long before NHS, they brought in a reform, which was their reform, which brought in universal healthcare. India, 1948, when the Brits were there, they inherited the National Health Service, so they brought a reform in that said everybody has access to healthcare. China, the same when communism, I don't forget the exact date when communism came to China, but once again, social services, package, education, all those things were part of the reform at that time, and, was universal. Brazil, 1988, constitutional reform which says universal access. How is that different from Canada, where you said, 1957 and 1974, whatever, 78, Canada brought in a reform that said we're going to do universal, okay?
Doesn't
So
every you- country have universal health care except the United States?
No, many countries actually don't, including European countries that have universal, but they actually don't. Germany never passed a law that says universal health care, neither did France. I mean, they have it, but they never actually passed it. You won't find a law.
No, the French law in 2000,
Oh,
April
maybe.
1st, it was no joke,
Was it?
said there was universal coverage.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Okay. So two down, okay, BRICS down, and Universal, we're already there, so, we don't have to, we can finish now, go off and have a coffee. That's a quick pass, right?
No, it's a great,
Okay.
we might still have some questions for you, Al.
Yeah, okay. Okay, now let's get to reform, right? So this is interesting because now you have 4 countries that have universal health care, and you're now thinking of reform to do something with universal health care that you're not happy about, because you're not happy with, my guess is that you're not happy with the universal health care in any of these countries, and so you want to do something about it. But we have to just be careful, because when you talk about universal health care, they actually all have universal health care, okay? So there's some aspect of their kind of universal health care that you don't like, okay? But they have universal health care. And you may not like it, but they have it, okay?